welcome and we're sorry, depending on how you feel. We do actually have one cool McDonald's I would recommend. Over here off, I think it's off Randolph. Yeah, there's a international McDonald's that serves items from all over the world at that location. I think that one's worth checking out. All right, let's start talking about some buildings. That's what we're here for. I'm gonna take a second though to appreciate the breeze too. That helps. Over here on our right, you have this tall brownish building with that statue at the top of it. That is the Chicago Board of Trade. In the movie Batman Begins, that was Wayne Tower. Pretty cool. The statue up there is a statue of Ceres, the Roman goddess of the harvest. Seems like an odd thing to be on top of the Board of Trade, but Ceres, and the harvest in general, are very important to Chicago city history. Not that we were a farm town. Agriculture was never like our main industry. Couldn't be even if we wanted it to be. We don't have good soil for it. But we move farm product all over the country. So the goddess of grain is very important to how our city built up. Also notably, first season of Soul Train was filmed at the Chicago Board of Trade. I always found that very interesting. We use some of the space up there that's usually used to like film commercials and things like that. And then over here ahead of us and on our right, you got this brownish building with that circular glass crown at the top of it. That is 311 South Wacker, just an address, no interesting name to it. But the crown is actually a light. They light it up at night. Looks pretty cool on our skyline. But at first, they were lighting it up a little bit too much. And it was so bright that it was throwing off migration patterns of birds and insects throughout the Midwest. So a lot of insects traveled by moonlight, thought that was the moon, so went the wrong way. And they started swarming the city, and then birds and bats followed, threw off all of nature. We had to start dimming this down. Led us to realize we have the worst light pollution in North America, which we're finally starting to tackle. Past it, you got this tall black building. What I want you to notice from this angle is all the varying heights it comes up to. Notice how it comes up to all these varying heights. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but first, can anyone name the building for me? Sears Tower is correct. Willis Tower is incorrect, but I'm not going to dock you any points, because if you go off Wikipedia, that's what you're going to say. But we still call it the Sears Tower here. We don't like learning new names for stuff. But the fact that it ends at all these varying heights is really important to how it supports itself. Bruce Graham was the architect, Fazla Khan was the engineer, and they had a meeting at a bar to decide how they were going to build the tallest building in the world. And Bruce Graham, architect, reaches into a bowl of cigarettes, grabs one, snaps it in half, shows how weak that is. Then he grabs several more and keeps adding to it. And eventually, it's strong enough that you can no longer break it just through your own hands. And he pitches the idea of not building one tower, building 9 separate towers and banding them together to support the weight of the entire structure as a whole. It's called bundled tube construction, or now known as the second school of Chicago architecture. That is how you build super tall structures. And actually on the Sears Tower itself, you see the lines going across, it's first like banded together, holding the entire weight of the building. It is very impressive. It's not the tallest building in the world anymore, but that is the blueprint of all of the tallest. Anything taller than this is going to be built in that style, up to and including the Burj Khalifa in Dubai, which is actually built in that second school of Chicago architecture, and actually by the same firm. Skidmore, Owings & Merrill also built this, and they built the Burj Khalifa. You'll recognize that it kind of ends at all these varying heights. It's a very common way to do it. And we'll talk more about the Sears Tower on our way back, so we're going to have a lot of good views of that thing. But as you can tell, it's pretty massive. The other thing I want to talk about, though, while we're down here, before we really get going, is the bridges. We're going to go under a lot of bridges. We actually have the most movable bridges of any city in the world, and our bridges do still all operate. And for the most part, what we're going to see is what are called Chicago bridges, or a trunnion bascule bridge. Quite simply, trunnion's an axle that rotates, lifts each leaf of the bridge, and it's just very quick, very reliable little system. Most of these were built in the 30s and are working ever since. And I missed the person waving. I tried, but I missed it. These bridges do go up for traffic Wednesdays and Saturdays throughout the boating season for free. Any other day like a Thursday or a Friday, you can get those to go up for your boat, but you got to call ahead, you got to schedule ahead. Most importantly, you got to pay in advance. $1,000 per bridge. So you're looking at a bill of $32,000 to get through Chicago if you have a yacht large enough, which I've only seen it like twice in my life, and it's very infuriating every time you see it because you know how much they're paying for that. But for the most part, that does not happen. The other thing I want to address while I'm down here, though, is I'm feeling bridges. Let's talk one more bridge thing. We take our bridges very seriously. In this style, the Chicago bridge style, we landed on this because basically because of a protest. Previously, the Dearborn Street Bridge was made of wood, and it was so hated that one day all the citizens decided to go out there with axes and hack the whole thing up, so the city would have to build a new functioning one. So yeah, that was how we ended up landing on these ones. We took it very seriously. And to our left, underneath these buildings, you are going to see trains. The trains were here first. The buildings were added later. That means the buildings don't actually have any claim to the land that they're on. They're paying rent on air, something called air rights. They're renting out air above land that they don't own. And this air averages to about $1 million a year. And you're gonna pay that forever because you don't own any of the land. But the more interesting aspect to me of those trains being down there is you can't build a regular building. You can't build like a regular foundation. You have to operate a train through your basement, right? So you're gonna see a lot of different strategies on how to deal with all this extra weight. You'll see this one, 2 North Riverside Plaza, actually the first building built using air rights. Yeah. Do not like the jet skis in the river, kind of gross. River's pretty polluted. I don't want to be that close to the water. They have fun though, fun on the lake. Here, this one to our left, 2 North Riverside Plaza, is just offset with most of the weight away from the rear, from away those trains. Easy way to do it. Then it gets more complex. Ahead of us and on our left, you got the Boeing building, and you can see you got a metallic trapezoid up here. That trapezoid, first off, when was the last time you heard the word trapezoid? Yeah, geometry class, and it never came up again. But if you're an engineer, you are going to hear a lot about that. It's a very strong shape. You use it to kind of hold up larger things. This is actually holding up this corner of the building from the air. It's a suspension system. If you've seen a suspension bridge, they hold up all the way from the air. That's what's happening here. This corner is suspended from the sky. They built the frame of that. They built that, what's called